of stuff, because I'm going to dive into some models here next. Okay, I've come up with 4 models. And what this is your relationship with your student will look very different from somebody else's, and that's okay. What I want to talk through is the 4 models that I've seen and kind of how they work. The first is what I call the BFFs. This is the discipler and the student who are just on great terms. They hang out maybe every other week, they hang out every week, they talk, they text constantly, they're just attached to the hip. This is like the 1 in 10. Okay? And in that case, the relationship is there, it's developed naturally, there's not a whole lot of work that needs to be done. BFF is the easy model of how this happens. The occasional meetup is the more common one. My wife is the discipler for 2 girls who will now be in 9th grade. And what she does is she aims for about once every 2 months. She tries to make sure that she gets to meet with them one-on-one once every 2 months. She calls them up and says, is Thursday after school or Thursday evening good for you and I to go to Panera and have coffee? And that's kind of what they do. Now the other thing that she does is she prays for them every day. She also makes sure that when she sees them at church, she goes out of her way to make sure that she says hi to them. Takes an interest to talk to them when she sees them. She will text them and just say, hey, hope you're having a good day. It's not nearly as intense as the BFFs, but that's okay. You don't want to force anything. That's kind of, and that was the other critique of the Young Life approach, was that in some cases it became forced. There was a sense of obligation on the behalf of the adult. We don't want to do that. However the relationship develops naturally, that's what we want to see. The sports enthusiast, this is the guy who is never home, who plays soccer and runs track and does 3 sports all in the same season, on top of doing guitar lessons and trumpet lessons, and in his free time, crying. This is the kid who you cannot track down, whose parents don't even know if he's necessarily there all the time. This is what I call the sports enthusiast. This is the one that's harder to track down one-on-one, and that's okay. But again, this is where the principle of finding out what matters to them and making it matter to you. So if the sports enthusiast plays lacrosse and loves lacrosse, find out their lacrosse coach will make it to a couple games, not all of them. Don't even stay for the whole thing. The rule of thumb is get there at halftime. Stay for the second half, so you can talk to them afterwards. Now you know my secret. But yeah, so meet them where they're at. You may never engage in an hour-long heart-to-heart. Girls tend to do that, guys not so much. That's okay. You may find out that they are huge Pitt fans. They love Pitt basketball. Well, guys don't necessarily want to go to Panera, but if you go to, let's say, the clubhouse and say, hey, the Pitt game is on Monday at 7, why don't you and I go to the clubhouse and watch it? That's a great way to connect with somebody who that's an interest. And since it's typically a guy, you don't have to talk that much because the TV is going. It gives you something to talk about. Okay? And you laugh at it, but it works. So engage in their interests. The same principle goes for number 4. Number 4 is what I call the geek. The geek is the kid who stays at home and plays World of Warcraft all day. Who gets on the bus, gets off the bus, goes in, and parks himself in front of his Xbox 360 and or computer, and is there until dinner, does the homework, goes back on the Xbox 360, goes to bed, repeat. Nothing. Never leaves the house. Okay. Number 1, yes, these kids actually do have time. Their parents would be very grateful to get them out of the house. They'll call and be like, hey, can I take them to dinner? Yes, please, keep them the whole night. But the geek, again, find out their interest. If it is World of Warcraft, whatever it may be, find out about it. Don't necessarily play it, but try and get a taste for what they are interested in. What's interesting is that you're probably sitting there going, hey Brian, that was you in high school. No, actually, I was a sports enthusiast who did track all the time, so I was never actually home. And my parents loved that, and I never understood why, but now I do. But the geek is somebody who's going to be more challenging because they're not out, they're not social to start with. So how you engage with them will vary depending on their interests. The sports enthusiast in many ways is easy because they have a schedule, you know where they're going to be, you know what matters to them, and you show up. But the geek can be a little trickier and sometimes requires some learning. For those of you who are discipling those who are going to be in 8th grade, which is you, Mm-hmm. 8th grade. Yes. You have 2 specific requirements. All the rest of you don't have to worry about this. Well, you never have for better. And you have a couple of years. You have 2 additional things that you have to do. Number 1 is every week there will be Bible readings for you to do. So yes, you get to do them again. These will come. I've changed them. They're all different.
I don't think I do.
But yeah, you will have 2 specific weekly readings. There are 5 a week. They vary in length from being very short at the beginning of the year. They get a little longer in the middle, and they get shorter at the end. I'll tell you that you've probably got about 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day. The purpose is kind of twofold. Number 1, it gives you something to talk about. If nothing else, you can talk about that. I know that sounds bad. If nothing else, talk about Bible. But that's kind of how how it works. If nothing else, you can say. So what do you think of that starting Luke? The other thing is this. A lot of them are going to read this stuff and not going to have a clue what it's about. So my wife had one of her students who they get together, and this girl couldn't wait because she had all these questions. She didn't want to ask them in group because there were a dozen of us. So she and my wife spent a good half hour early on in the year talking about the Bible readings. And that's great. So, but what it does, it keeps you on the same page with them, at least in some way. You have one shared interest from the start. The other thing is, to be honest, it's a very good discipline for you because it will force you to keep up on reading the Bible in some way. The other thing, and this is where people start to get scared, every disciple will be asked to come and share their faith story at one of our meetings. Now, we're going to be meeting on Monday night, and sometime between September and March, when we end, you're going to be asked to come and share what your faith story is, how your faith has changed and grown. Now, you might be saying, okay, that was a part of the deal when I signed up. I'm not sure if I'm really comfortable with that. I want to tell you a story. I once had somebody who came up to me and said, Brian, I'm not really sure you want me to do that. I said, well, why? I said, well, I know I believe, but I got a lot of questions. And I've gone through some rough stuff in my life, and I'm just not sure you want me as an example. I said, well, that's actually exactly the example I want. And this person came and shared very honestly about their struggles, their questions, and their doubts. The kids ate it up because it was so real. And they really connected with it. So no matter what your story is, that's the story that God wants you to tell our group of 8th graders who will be starting a journey toward what we call confirmation, and what a journey it is. I love it. It is.